Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crash City. This week, I have a very special guest. I got to interview him on a different show, but this time I'm taking the show solo, and I'm going to actually get to have a conversation with him. I have the voice of Shikamaru. I have Tom Gibbis here. How are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. Great. Whatever. What a drag. Get that out of the way.
I love it. I love it. So I want to talk. The last time I got to talk to you, we did hit a few things, but we didn't get to go into a lot more than just mainly Naruto.
Sure.
One thing I want to talk to you about is your tree service job, because we didn't get to touch a lot on that.
My tree service job.
Or your national park job.
Oh, I never had no. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Yes.
So when I was in when I was growing up, I grew up in West St. Paul, Minnesota, in a suburb, of the Twin Cities. And I always had this, I wanted to be an actor. I always, that was something in me from very little when I was that'd be the coolest thing ever. But, we're from Minnesota. We live in the suburbs. We didn't know any actors. That didn't seem like a real job. Right. And it also seemed like impossible. Like, how do you even start doing it? You know what I mean? And so in junior high, that's when they start giving you these aptitude tests and like, what would you like to do? And, be a pipe fitter or an accountant or whatever. And anyway, I had an interest in I don't know why, but like outdoors and stuff. And I thought the greatest job would be to have, if I couldn't be an actor, the greatest job would be to be work for the Forest Service. This idea of being a park ranger, driving a Jeep and having a dog, going to a fire tower, having your cup of coffee, looking out on the, helping people in the woods and stuff. And so I did a lot of canoeing and camping, and there were programs actually. It's mostly like youth programs, like with my church, and then like there was through the junior high, there was this near my house, there was this thing called Dodge Nature Center, and in junior high they had this program called the Young Naturalists, and you'd go and work at the nature center. And we did things like outdoor camping in winter. So we built an igloo. I got to sleep in an igloo once, and snowshoeing and cross-country skiing and, conservation and all sorts of things like that, how to live off the land. And then when the elementary kids would come in, we would help them give guided tours of the nature center. And they had like a working farm, and they had an orchard, and they did maple syrup. They'd tap the trees every year. And so we'd help with all that kind of stuff. And it was a big property, huge, in the middle of West St. Paul. And it was called the Dodge Nature Center. And so I ended up working for that. I wasn't working. I mean, I wasn't getting paid. Yeah. It was like they got the junior high kids to help the elementary kids. It was like that kind of thing. And then I was in Boy Scouts and all that stuff, Cub Scouts and all that when around that time as well. I kind of got done with the Boy Scouts, and then I really dove in on this, naturalist program. And again, we would, with my friends and like church trips and stuff, we would go up to the Boundary Waters, which is in northern Minnesota, and we'd go camping on these like 12, 14-day trips. And long story short, by around the time like I was a junior in high school, I kind of realized it's incredibly hard to be employed by the National Forest Service if you wanted to go into forestry. And there are degrees. You can get a degree from a college in forestry, but it's really math intensive. And I am not good at math. Not at all. That is not my strong suit. And so I was like, well, if it's and at that time, like the U.S. Forest Service would hire like 2 people a year. It was crazy. It was, and so I said, well, those odds, I mean, it's just as bad odds to become an actor. So I might as well do that. And at the same time, I was doing like school plays, and I was doing community theater and stuff as well, too. So I was feeding that part of my personality at that time, too. But I was also going like, acting is fun. The the forestry stuff, the outdoorsy stuff, that's more realistic. That could be a job that I could actually have. At least in my mind, that's where I was. At that age when they start asking, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" That's what I did.
And then going on to acting, one of your earlier roles is you did a little film out here in Roswell, New Mexico. Am I correct?
Yes, I did. It's technically a documentary called 6 Days in Roswell. And, but they used, I don't know how they categorize it now, because it is a comedy, and it was some buddies of mine that were putting it together. And basically you'd go into real life situations and you'd kind of try and stir the pot a little bit, and, and then get real reactions from real people who are not actors. And so I thought it would be fun to go because, so basically Roswell, New Mexico, I can't remember what year it was, but it was an anniversary. It's like 50th anniversary or something. Back in 1947, there was supposedly a craft that crashed and there's a lot of weird, questions about what it really was. The first 3 days, it was, we captured a flying saucer. And then after 3 days, the Air Force came in and said, it wasn't flying saucer, it was a weather balloon. And but there were some things that didn't quite add up with that story either. So it, of course it created all this conspiracy theory stuff. And so I think 2000? Did you say when was the movie released? 2000?
I believe so.
98, 97, 90 something.
Yeah.
So we heard that friends of ours were going to be down there with the film crew, and they were doing this kind of stuff. And so they said, if you guys want to come down, we'll put you in the movie, So we did. And they were like 3 buddies of mine. And that whole trip was really fun. It just, that was the car broke down. We were in the middle of Arizona, and trying to get to New Mexico. And we were going to stay in, he had a little VW, my friend Pete had a VW bug van, the camper van. And the whole idea is we were going to stay in the van, but then the van broke down. So we had to leave it in Phoenix. And then we rented a car and we drove to New Mexico because this event was going on. And the idea was to, explore like what happened, but it was basically like an anime con is today, but it was just alien themed. That's basically there was no, I'm sure there were some lectures. We did go to a couple lectures and stuff, but it was sort of, it was for the people, true believers, not like, no, there wasn't a lot of, could this be, it was like, this already happened because of this and this and this happened. And I'm like, we haven't even proved the first thing happened. So, let's, let's try. And, so anyway, they asked us if we want to be in the movie, and of course, I'll get some screen time if I can. And they said, well, why don't you guys, they had us pitch ideas, and my friend Pete had a couple ideas and I had a couple ideas. And anyway, my idea was to stand in front of the convention center during this 50th anniversary of Roswell, New Mexico, supposed alien crash. And of course, everything in Roswell, they've really leaned into it. Like they have the little alien inn and you can stay there. And they have like the McDonald's is shaped like a flying saucer. And they have a couple of museums and stuff. And they've really leaned into it. Everything's alien themed. And so it's kind of like a parade, a celebration. It's a, it's very light on any facts or evidence or anything like that. But it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of hippies, and there was a lot of goofballs, and a lot of it was interesting people. And let me put it that way. And then I had the most fun talking to the locals. And like, because they were like, yeah, it's all a dog and pony show. This is all, whatever. And you'd say, well, what do you think really happened? And they'd give you their theories and stuff. And that was fun. Anyway, the bit that I came up with, which I felt I'm very proud of myself for it, was we made up signs. There were 3 of us. And like one sign said, what cover up? ? And then the other sign said, I believe my government. and we just stood out in front of the convention center, didn't say a word, and people went ape shit, if I can say shit.
Yep. Yes.
They were coming up and they're like, "Whoa, what are you supposed to be? Do you work for the CIA?" Or stuff like that. And I'm like, what kind of world is it where it's a controversial statement to say I believe my government, and what cover up? Tell me where you have proof of anything. And they got so riled up, and so there's like 30 seconds of it, what they used in the documentary comedy / what do they call it? Mockumentary. How's that?
Mockumentary.
Yeah. And but it was a lot of fun. Nobody was really bent out of shape. But it was fun to kind of argue that counterpoint, just to kind of just see how people would react, and also to make people think about it. Like, does it make sense? Is it more realistic that an alien ship came from millions of miles away, landed here, or is it more likely that it's just was something has a very terrestrial explanation, a very earthly explanation, but it is something the government wanted to cover up. And if you want to call them aliens, then great. Then you're running down the wrong hole, down the wrong rabbit hole. One of the locals, this story I'll tell you. So his dad worked at a prison camp in New Mexico, and the prison camp, World War II. During World War II, we would take German soldiers that were captured, and we sent them to New Mexico, and they had these big work camp kind of things, prisons, and they were treated actually very nice, and a lot of them decided not to go back to Germany. They decided to stay in the United States. He told me two stories. One story was the Germans refused to eat corn, and because they thought they called corn Schwein food. That's the food you feed pigs. And so they were insulted that the Americans were feeding them corn on the cob, and they were feeding them, creamed corn and, just corn with butter on it, like a side dish, like we do. Like you go to Colonel Sanders and you can get corn, and they were insulted. You do not eat. That's what pigs eat. Human beings don't eat that. Like it was a big thing. And apparently the commandant of the camp, the warden, basically said, "We're going to feed you nothing but corn until you eat it." We will have plenty of corn available, but if you don't like the food you're getting. Meanwhile, the U.S. guys were being starved, and in Japan and in the Pacific, those guys really had it bad. The Death March. I don't know if you follow any of that history. MacArthur, I Will Return, and we also had Japanese prisoner of war camps. So here's the second theory.
Oh,
all right. So he had said when the war ended, a lot of the Germans wanted to stay. They moved into the area. They married local girls. They loved America, and they loved New Mexico. Plus, the prison camp was out in the middle of New Mexico. If they escaped, where are you going to go? It's thousands of miles before you can cause any trouble, right? So that's why they put those camps there. And but the Japanese prisoners of war, it was dishonorable to be captured. Right.
Yes.
And it was a big shame having lost the war. They didn't want to go back. So this is I'm just laying out the theory. You can.
Yeah.
This is what some guy told me. Okay. This is like the best, the best kind of information you want. Some guy said, okay. So don't take it from me. Take it from somebody else. This is the rumor, legend, whatever. That a lot of the Japanese prisoners, they didn't want to go back. Okay. It was shameful. They didn't want to go back. And they were like, well, what are you going to do here? And so the Army, which at that time, the Air Corps was the Army Air Corps, and then it became the Air Force. And it was right around that time, 1947, 49. You'd have to look it up. But so these guys from Japan volunteered to work with the Air Force, the newly formed Air Force, and they were like, sorry, my phone's ringing.
You're good.
And they needed test pilots, and these guys were, some of them were pilots, some of them were, soldiers, whatever.
Yeah.
But they needed test pilots, and at that time we were trying to break the sound barrier. We were trying to do a lot of different things, and we were testing. So the legend would be that they were testing high pressurized suits that we'd eventually use to get to the moon. But we also used them for hypersonic aircraft. Well, not son. I guess now we got to hypersonic, but at that time it was breaking the sound barrier. I don't know what you call that. And so they have high altitude suits. So they would get the best technology that we had. These guys had volunteered. They'd put on the uniforms. They would send back data. They'd send them up in a weather balloon, high altitude atmosphere balloon. And they would be in a little capsule or a pod, and these guys were testing out the equipment, right? The boots, yep, and the silver suits and the helmets that we are eventually going to use in the Mercury missions to start when we do orbiting, install that stuff. And they put them up and send them up into high altitude, right? Okay. Human test subjects, very controversial, even then in 1947. But test pilots were putting their lives on the line every single day with untried aircraft all the time. From the 1920s and 30s into the 40s, we still do it. You fly in an experimental aircraft, you're taking your life in your own hands because there's a million things that can go wrong with the technology. So they send a high altitude weather balloon with a pod that was attached they could testing all sorts of different types of equipment. Something goes wrong, and that thing crashes. There was a storm that night in Roswell. There was lightning, thunder, all that kind of stuff. So maybe the balloon was hit by a lightning bolt or something, or why they were up in a storm. Maybe they were trying to see if weather would affect, who knows. So this thing crashes in the middle of the desert, and some farmer finds it. And now what does he find? So first of all, if your high altitude suit fails, your eyes become completely bloodshot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because every vessel you become bloated. Now you're laying out in the desert for 3 days. Your skin is gray. You're in a silver suit wearing silver boots that no one's ever seen because it's experimental. You know what I mean? You have round helmets on that, again, nobody's seen because this is space stuff was just being invented. So a lot of this stuff and there's a little silver capsule that you landed in or crashed in. And so you got 3 diminutive bodies with bloated heads, blown out eyes, laying in the desert. And you go, well, those are aliens. Or those are poor Japanese POWs who volunteered and did some human experiments, and it's something the government would never admit to. It completely explains that they go ahead, talk about aliens all day long because we don't want to be charged with, war crimes, or somebody's going to get sued or go to jail because we used people when we should have been using animals. Now, animal rights people would say you shouldn't be using animals either. but at that time they were sending monkeys, they were sending dogs. Russia, they used a lot of dogs. And they would test a lot of that equipment. And then eventually the first orbit is a dog. And then we sent a human, or the Russians sent a human. So, that's just kind of where we were at that time period in history. So I thought it was a really interesting story. I don't know if it's true. There's no, but it would make it would check a lot of boxes when it comes to conspiracy theories. And it makes you think like, ooh, I don't know, so.
This was a conspiracy theory hour with Shikamaru. Let me just say
that's
that.
Right.
That was cool.
What a drag. I believe my government.
No, that's awesome. Like, I did not know that. That's cool, and that's a great theory. So what you're talking about, like the festival you guys came down for, because the movie came out in 99. So
yeah, so it would have been 98 maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe 97, because we shot a lot of, a lot of stuff before we even went to that thing. The whole premise of the movie is my friend Rich was trying to go to Roswell to get abducted. That was the premise.
That's wild.
But that was all BS. That was just, and he would just, and he had an odd character that he would always do called Dr. Sphenker. It wasn't the Dr. Sphenker character, but he was kind of like that. And it was just this sort of like really nerdy guy. And so his whole thing was, I'd like to get abducted, because he was just a nerd who didn't fit in kind of thing. And then, but then we intercut with that with live reactions from people reacting to, and like I said, I had a 2-second part in the movie, but it was a lot of fun. So. And, it was the thing you'd go with your buddies and y'all goof around. And then, like I say, talk to the locals. You find out a lot more, or really fun conspiracy theories anyway, on that. And I don't know where I land on aliens. FYI, I think aliens are out there. I don't know if they visit us or not, I don't know why they'd want to. Tell you the truth. If anything, they would just observe us,
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, until we get some evidence. I mean, there's some really interesting. I don't know what's more scary with these. What is it? UAVs? They're calling them now. They're not UFOs.
Yeah.
Is it scarier that it's a UFO from another planet? That's almost safe. Like I can almost great. Mm-hmm. Or if it's the Russians or the Chinese or anybody else on the planet, you'd be like, where is this technology and why are they running circles around our F-14s? It's like, I don't like this. Like these guys are, and if it is terrestrial, if that's a new drone system or something, we got problems.
That's right? Horrifying.
So, that's more horrifying than if it was E.T., because we don't know what E.T.'s intentions are, So, I mean, a lot of that stuff can be explained, but a lot of it can't. And I guess they're releasing more stuff now. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But I mean, the world's so goofed up right now. They say we have pictures of UFOs, and everybody goes, okay. Anyway, I'm upset about.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true.
If this was the 70s, that's all people would have talked about. Is like, I can't believe the aliens are here. What are we gonna do? Now it's just like, get in line. I got 99 problems, and aliens aren't one of those.
Exactly.
So
no, that's still cool that you've been here before. You've gotten to experience Roswell. One thing I do want to touch on too, because you talk about it, traveling with the boys, getting to hang out, talk to the locals, especially the convention scene, because you're big into conventions. Do you do that too, where you meet fans, you don't necessarily, you give them their time talking about Shikamaru and how Naruto affected their life, but you're also like, hey, what can I get into here in Los Angeles or Seattle or X, Y, and Z?
It's tough. I love going to these places, and I basically get the cliff note, oh, we're in Seattle. There's the Space Needle. I might get to see it or might get to ride it. Maybe if we have time. And, it's like, do you want to rent an Uber and go up to the, you're so tired after a day on the floor of a convention, because I talk all freaking day and at these conventions, and I love it. I'm a very chatty person. I like talking to people, and I like hearing their stories, and they like hearing my stories. Well, and like I said, I'll tell a story like I just told, if that came up, you know what I mean? And people love that stuff, and I'm just like, that's great. Except I got people in line, and I'm supposed to be signing. My wife goes, "You gotta keep moving, Okay. So, I love that. I definitely love that part of it. But it is tiring by the end of the day. If it's slow too, it's like, if people are there and chatting with me, I'm happy as a clam, and, but if it's slow and it's dead, which happens like Sundays usually are pretty kind of dead, especially at the end of the day. It's like time stops or something. I don't know what it is, but, so we'll get there at like 9 a.m, and then the show opens at 10, and next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock, and you're like, what? It's over? Those are the best days because that means you were, you were active all day long. You were doing stuff. And so anyway, if you get a chance to get out, you don't have your own car. You're subject to other people driving or getting an Uber or a Lyft, and or you just go back to the restaurant and the hotel and go to sleep. That's and I've unfortunately, or fortunately, that's what I do because keeps me out of trouble, I suppose too. But not that I get into trouble. I never was into trouble. But you don't want to stay out late if you got to go do the same thing again the next day. And then you got to travel. So they usually fly. Like if it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday show, you'll come in Thursday night. Do the show Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then either I'm on a flight on Sunday night, try to get back here by Monday morning, or sometimes they'll have you travel on Monday. And then it's just like, now it's 5 days to do a 3-day con.
Yeah.
It's really hard to, you got a life, we have a dog. Sometimes my wife will go with me and that's always fun. We can make a little trip out of it. But even then it's just, it's hard to make plans. It's hard to get around these places, but when you're in the van on the way to the airport, you get to see what it looks like, and and you really get to talk to the people, which is even better. Like I think you get a better feel for a town and the people that live in a town just by talking to people that live there, and what they love to do and what they like to, what their life is like, and it's I've really appreciated that part of. Since pandemic is when I've started. I did a couple of cons before that, but after pandemic is when we kind of started doing it more seriously. 10 or 12 shows a year. And, but it's also slowed down a little bit, and I kind of miss a little of that, even though it's kind of a pain to be at all these shows. FYI, for anybody listening, if you want me to come to a show, everybody says you should come to, Indianapolis. And it's like, it's not up to me. It's voice actors are like vampires. You have to invite us in. So you got to get your local con to specifically request Tom Gibbis to come to your show. And then my agent, they're always trying to find stuff for us too, but it always helps when, and it's happened a couple of times where, there'll be a show and there'll be enough people that ask for me by name that my agent will go, they asked for you by name, so we got you booked on this show. And it's like, oh, I'll take it, so that's kind of how the business works. Everybody wants Naruto, Maile. Everybody wants Sasuke, Yuri. Everybody wants Kakashi. Those without a doubt, they'll go to any show that they want to go. They can basically just call up and go, hey, can I come to your show? And they'll be like, yes. Yep. And the rest of us, the Rock Lees, Brian Donovan, the Obitos, Michael Yurchak, the Tom Gibbises, the Shikamarus, the kind of secondary characters of the show. It's a little more work that has to come into play to get us to come to not that we would go, but it's more of like what the promoters want, what they're trying to accomplish, with agents and negotiations and all that kind of stuff. So if you want me to come to your show, or your favorite, I'll just say your favorite voice actor, you got to ask for it. Like when you're buying those tickets to the show this year, say, hey, can you get Brian Donovan next year? Can you get Tom Gibbis or whoever you want? It really helps. So, but it's not up to us. It's not up to us.
I want to thank you, because after the first time that I got to interview you, I reached out to Steve Staley, who's Neji, and then I finally got the confidence to where a local con out in a bigger city here in New Mexico, they were looking for media people. So I decided, hey, I'm going to try this. And that's why I was asking, because, I got to see what you guys deal with when the convention closes at 5:00, what you guys have to do. And, seeing voice actors go get food, try to relax, try to just chill out after that. That's why I was like, oh, what's a typical thing that you do? Because they did. Everybody seemed tired. And then for myself, trying to
you're exhausted.
run.
It's you wouldn't think. You're sitting in a chair and you're talking. Well, you know what I always say to people, because people go, is it tough to do Shikamaru's voice? And I'll say, no, actually, Shikamaru's easy because he's quiet, he's relaxed, whatever. I could talk like him all day. I go, Shikamaru's easy. Tom Gibbis is a lot of work. I got to be up and I got to be smiling. And you know what? People are in your line and they came to see you. Not that it's fake, because it's never fake. I enjoy doing it. I'm good at it. I mean, at that part of it, I don't have to fake it. But they're not going to stand in my line for 20 minutes and then me go up there and go, how you doing? What a drag. Boom. And then move on. And I know that some people are so busy, the big stars. So I give them a pass, and fans should give them a pass too, because these things are grueling, and especially if you have 1,000 people in your line. I mean, that's a dream of mine, but it would take me a month to get through 1,000 people because I can't shut up. But they've trained themselves to go, hello, how are you? What would you like? Your name? Okay, personalized? Great. Boom. Here's your pop. Thank you very much. Pay this person down here. And, and it's just like, and it's quick and it's boom and it's boom. But I get into these conversations. You can probably tell. I get into these conversations with people, and I love it. I love hearing their stories, and they love hearing mine, I think. Otherwise, I think they would not stand in my line. So, and I try and get them, like, if there is a line, I try and get everybody kind of come in so you can hear when I'm talking to this guy. He's asking questions that you might want to know the answers to too. And so I kind of have a little, hold court a little bit. And then, one person will leave and two more will come in, and then we tell different stories. And that's fun. I think it's a good way to do it. And it's, I enjoy it. I was at a signing with Maile, who plays Naruto. And we were in Arizona, and it was a special event. It was me and her, and they ran out of my pops pretty early on, and Maile just thousands. She was like, and so what I started to do when my pops ran out, everybody wanted to see Maile. Some of the people wanted to see me. It's just the way it is. And so she's signing, and I started kind of entertaining the crowd, and I would sign, like, for every 5 she signed, I'd sign 1, but I would also, like, be chatting and, doing stuff. And meanwhile, she was like, thank you so much. I guess it was, at least I felt like they're not just waiting for me to sign this, because there's a silence, you're signing and you're doing your thing. And then you're like, oh, okay, thank you. But there's that weird, if you're trying to have a conversation and you're signing, sometimes I'll either make mistakes writing, or, you're not engaged. You're kind of on autopilot, So, but Maile was like, thank you for, kind of keeping I was cracking jokes and, all this and that. And then people would come over to my line and but I kind of was entertaining the whole little area there. And it just made it easier for Maile, so she could just do what she needed to do to get through that line. And I thought it worked out pretty good. We've done a couple of online signings like that. What is it called? The
Streamlies, I think.
Yeah, Streamlies. We've done a couple Streamlies, and basically I'll host it for Maile. And then what I'll do is I'll schedule mine for like 20 minutes after hers ends. So the first half of the show, I'm answering questions. I go, Jason in North Carolina wants to know, what's your favorite scene from Naruto? And then she would say what it is. And then I would expand on that and talk about that scene or the character or whatever. And then I'd grab another question off the screen, but I kept talking. She kept signing. and then we'd flip it, and then she could relax. She's not signing, and she'd kind of host mine for a little bit. And it was great. We had it worked really well. So, because there's nothing worse than silence, when you're just sitting there and it's just like, I got to concentrate on this thing. Every once in a while, somebody will ask me to do a really long quote. And then it's almost like, if my wife is there, I'll go, talk to JM for a minute. I'm just going to, I'll be right back. Because you have to, I'll tell you a funny joke about, not a joke, but something that really happened about kind of talking and walking and writing at the same time. So I was signing Funko Pops, and so what a drag. I write a lot, and then the other one is sometimes I wish I was a cloud, right? So I'd say they would say, "Oh, sometimes I wish I was a cloud on this one." I was like, "Great, okay." So I start writing, and we're chatting, and I wrote, "Sometimes I wish I was a drag," and then I was like, "Oh." And I gotta clean this thing. I gotta fix it. And the guy was like, "No, that's perfect.
One of one.
I want it just the way it is." And I go, "It's a total mistake. I can fix this. I can fix these." No. Well, it ended up being, because there's 2 of them out there now. Because I did it again.
That's dope. I love that.
But it was like, you're so tired at a certain point, and you're talking and you're writing and you're not kind of concentrating, and the things kind of just start to mesh together, and that's I don't know. He enjoyed it. He seemed to be very happy that that's what was on his pop. So it's, like you said, a 101, but there's 2 now.
Now you need to have What a Cloud, and that'd be the 1 of 1. What a cloud. That would be amazing. No, you seem like a gentleman that should have your own podcast just telling stories.
Oh, well, thank you.
You love to have stories. I'm enjoying this. I love hearing all this. This is awesome.
I just would think, I don't know if people get bored or like, what does he know? Like, I'll tell you, we're thinking about doing a podcast, and Brian Donovan, Rock Lee, Mike Yurchak, we've talked about it. Of course, Shikamaru's involved, and he's lazy, so it hasn't happened. But it's me, Brian Donovan, and Mike Yurchak, who's Obito. So we were going to call it The Good, the Bad, and the Lazy podcast.
Oh, that would be so great.
And then the idea would be, we would talk about, well, that's our thing. It's like, what's your angle, right? So, and at one point we thought we could watch all of Naruto, and then you would get feedback on us kind of experiencing it for the first time, believe it or not. I mean, I know all my stuff in Naruto, and Brian definitely knows Rock Lee, and every scene that Rock Lee is in, Brian knows, but we don't know like the Madara stuff, and we don't know a lot of the Akatsuki, because we weren't part of that recording. And I'll admit, we didn't watch the show or read the manga. We just were told, okay, this is what happened leading into this, and then you go and you do it. And now since then, since I've been doing cons, I've really educated myself about the show, and I feel like I can talk intelligently about it. And but I still haven't seen all 998 episodes. My way to catch up was like reading plot summaries and things like that, and then talking to the actors. So I pull Mike Yurchak aside and say, okay, what's this whole man in the mask, Toby, Obito, and he laid it out for me, and I was like, okay, now it makes total sense. I got it, and so I've kind of been able to talk intelligently with fans about the major plot lines, and then anything that Shikamaru's in, I can definitely talk about, which is 90. You got to think 90% of my questions that they want to talk about Shikamaru. So, but I do know some people that are like, I don't even know what was going on in the show, and I couldn't tell you what even their part in the show. But to their defense, they were in a lot of shows. I mean, lots of titles and characters, and it all starts to run together at a certain point. For me, Shikamaru, I mean, I've done some work, but Shikamaru was always that because it was work for 20 years. It was always the show I had, and I do other little shows, nothing compared to Naruto. So that was always kind of a special place, very of importance in my life. So I always kind of remembered those sessions, that time, the plot lines that Shikamaru was involved in, and all of that. So, but I can see how, if you did 100 animes last year, could you remember the 25th one you did? You'd be like, I have no idea. Remind me again. Oh, they show him a picture and be like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. So
I believe it, but like something, I love how you said the concept of you guys watching and then giving your feedback or telling old stories. And something else would be just the convention stories, just hearing what you guys do. Because for like me as a listener, that would be one of the shows I'd be waiting for all week. Is just
I know I pitched that and we talked about it, but here the problem with it is you don't want to go. I'm just going to make up a con. Let's say it was the Iowa con, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to go like, went to the Iowa con. Did you? Oh,
yeah.
The food was awful, and we were in that barn thing, and it rained, and those are all great stories, but not for the people who are at the Iowa con. You want them to feel, you know what I mean? And then if you're dealing with promoters that they don't do the Iowa con, they do the Ohio con, and they do the Indiana con, and they do the Florida con. And if you badmouth, and not that you're badmouth, you're telling the truth or you're giving your perspective. It's like they gave me a hotel that looked over the parking lot, and it's like, and then there's also a little bit of, rich guy problems. Do anybody want to hear? It's like I had to ride in business class and I couldn't get a first class upgrade, and you'd be like, oh, boo hoo. Because everybody there drove or, had to ride coach, and you're complaining about getting a coach ticket or something. Like, we don't get first class, FYI. That's just not. I do sometimes get enough Delta miles that I can upgrade. And I will do that when I can, because I'm not a young man anymore. But, oh my God, we're going to Manchester, England. Long story. I ended up getting a business class ticket because my wife and I were going to go, and then we had to cancel that trip, and then I had a ticket. So the con is going to reimburse me for a certain percentage of whatever they were willing to pay for a ticket, but I booked it myself, and so I actually got to get a business class ticket. Now, if you go overseas, you can lay down in those seats. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's a 12-hour flight. And so like Brian and Mike and Doug Airholtz, they're going to white knuckle that sucker. And we're there for 72 hours. So we're going to get there on Friday and we're going to leave on Monday morning. And it's just like 10-hour flights on both sides, or 12-hour flights on both sides of it. And it's just like, and I'm like, thank God I'm in business class. But to upgrade to that, I mean, it's only because we had already bought a ticket. I'm going to, it lost money if that, if that was the way to do it. I had to save the ticket, so I used it. And, but I still paid for it, but it's just now I'm going to a con instead of on vacation. So, my wife sometimes does work in London. So, but I still have to pay my own way, but more information than you need, but but Mike and Brian are going to, those guys are going to be, they're going to be sitting upright in a, so I don't like to say that to them, because then they'll be like, what the hell? You're going business class? The con paid for that? I'm like, no, the con did not pay for that. So,
that's awesome. That'll be great to hear. They can hear that in a month when they watch this episode. Exactly. And figure it out.
But my point is, now, if we did a podcast like that, we were complaining or they were busting my balls about, getting an upgraded ticket or whatever, if the con hears it, would they be like, it makes them sound cheap or something? Or, we're definitely not at that level of friends. So you got to be really careful. Not that we're hiding anything or whatever. It's just, you don't want to come off as kind of as a jerk or, spoiled or, because honestly, I'll tell you, I'm doing a con this week, but it's in Anaheim, so I can drive. Then on Wednesday, I fly to Manchester, England. I come back on Monday. I actually have an event on the 6th in Los Angeles. So I'm going to land at 1:45. I have to be at that event at 6 p.m. Then on Thursday, I fly to Texas to do Akatsuki Con in Pasadena, Texas. And Mike and Brian and Doug are doing it too. And so is Neil Kaplan. And, so I'm going to see those guys more than I see my family. I have like 3 days in Los Angeles. Then I go back on the road. It's weird. They all got bunked up. Usually it's like you go once a month, something like that. And for whatever reason, I got like 3 in a row, and then a special event that came up in there. And it was like, it's going to be brutal. So, but at least I got business class.
Well, as we begin to wind down, I would love to have you back on here in like a month and a half. when this is all done, I want to hear the stories when this is all
feeds my
done.
narcissism for sure.
Yes, I love it.
Oh, let me tell stories about myself. So anyway, hopefully, and I say this, we will get our act together and we will get a podcast going. I think we're going to talk about it while we're in Manchester. The thing is, I'll see Brian and then I won't see Mike, and then I'll see Mike and I won't see Brian. You know, so we have to kind of coordinate. And I think in Manchester we'll all be together. So if we go out to dinner or something, and be like, okay, let's do this podcast. How are we going to do it? You know, so.
I definitely want to. Like I said, in a month and a half, when everything's kind of calmed down, I'll reach back out. Let's get this going. I want to hear the stories. I would love to hear what y'all's ideas are. This is going to be cool. But I mean,
it's all the behind the scenes. Again, does anybody want to know how the what's the whole? You want to know how the sausage is made? It's like, do you? I don't know. Maybe it's the fantasy is a little better with left unsaid, but I'd love to do one about. There's so many weird cons out there and weird shows that we do, and just odd things that we're asked to do, and then you go, yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to know. Definitely don't want to alienate the fans, and I gotta say, we don't really have fan problems. Our fans are like super cool, and they're weird and wonderful and nerdy, and they're the good kids. I think, you know what I mean? You get these wrestling fans.
Whoa!
I'll put up the anime fans as being like the ones you'd want to date your daughter. You know what I mean? It's like, that kid's okay. He likes anime. He's fine.
I can't wait to see that with all my wrestling
fans. I'm not going after sports fans. I'm not going after music fans. I'm just saying that I think the anime fans are uniquely fun and nice. They're sweet kids. You know what I mean? They're cool. And you can have great conversations with them. They have a, you know what? They have a great catalog of interest, and it makes them interesting people, I find.
Where can everybody find you?
At the real Tom Gibbis on TikTok and Instagram. I think I'm on the it's not X. Oh, maybe no, it's not X. I don't do that one. I do the Threads.
Blue Sky.
Threads.
Oh, Threads.
Well, and I do Blue Sky too, I think. I don't know. The best ones, you know what? Instagram and TikTok, they're the only ones that really have that matter for because that's where I announce shows and stuff like that, upcoming events and things like that. So, okay. And if you have requests, I was doing this thing for a while where it would be like Shikamaru auditions. Shikamaru auditions for famous movies, and it would be like, this is take one. I'm a man who has a very unique set of skills. And just do the whole,
I like that.
Liam, what is
Liam Neeson?
Yeah, thank you. Liam Neeson's, speech, but as Shikamaru, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to have to make him an offer he can't refuse. Like Godfather or something like that. So I would do it like as though Shikamaru, the actor, was auditioning, but it started because people were requesting, and then I got people and then it stopped. So I don't know what happened. But if anybody has an idea, like what would it sound like if Shikamaru was auditioning for, and then you fill in the blank movie, it could be funny. Maybe Shakespeare would be funny with Shikamaru too.
That would be wild.
Whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.
I feel like people, if I clip that out of context, people would immediately be like, oh, that was when Shikamaru was saying that in this episode, even though that's completely not what it is. But I love it. That
to
fits.
die, perchance to sleep, to dream. Anyway.
But yes,
Thank
ladies and gentlemen, This was my conversation with Shikamaru, Tom Gibbis. Thank you again for being on the show. Like I said,
it was fun.
Here in a month and a half, I'll reach back out. I want to hear all the stories. I want to see how Manchester was, how everything was. And we will see each
awesome
and every one of you in our next adventures. Bye, guys.
And I promise it won't be a drag.
I love it.
That was this week's interview. Obviously, you had to have loved it because you stayed towards the end, and we really appreciate that. But please hit the subscribe button. Like, comment, even share. Helps me and helps my guests. And if you want to stay here a little bit longer, we have previous weeks where we interviewed some of the most best people on this planet. Plus, you can head over to the Crash Pad where you can see me, Erebus V, and It's Bacon just mark out on some wrestling, whether you want to get into wrestling or already been a fan for years. Come and see our reactions. You never know what you're going to get.